My daughter walked out on her autistic son 11 years ago. 11 years. I raised that boy by myself through the sleepless nights, the meltdowns, the therapies, the moments when he couldn't even look me in the eye. I poured everything I had into him. Then, at 16 years old, my grandson built an app that caught the attention of Silicon Valley. $6 million. That's what they valued his creation at. 6 million reasons for ghosts to come back from the dead. And come back she did. She showed up at my door with a lawyer in an expensive suit and a briefcase full of legal documents, claiming she wanted custody. Claiming she deserved control of his money. My hands shook as I read those papers. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. I called our lawyer that same night, desperate, terrified. Her words hit me like a sledgehammer. "Loretta, I have to be honest with you. We might lose this." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything I'd built, everything we'd survived together, it was all about to be ripped away by the woman who'd abandoned us when things got hard. But then my grandson, my brilliant, beautiful boy who rarely speaks more than a few words at a time, leaned close to me. His voice was calm, steady, almost unnervingly so. He whispered for words that I didn't understand at the time. "Grandma, just let her talk." Before I go any further, I need to pause here for just a moment. I'm so grateful you're here with me, listening to this story. If you're watching this video right now, please do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And I really want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city, your state, your country in the comments below. I want to see how far this story of betrayal, justice, and yes, revenge has traveled across the world. Because what happened to us could happen to anyone. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone. Now, let me take you back to where it all fell apart. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September. The kind of day where the light slants through the windows just right, golden and warm, making even my cramped little living room feel almost peaceful. I'd spent the morning doing laundry and meal prep, the routine stuff that keeps our lives stable. Stability matters when you're raising a child with autism. Routine is everything. I thought the doorbell was Amazon delivery. I'd ordered some new noise-canceling headphones for Jaden. His old pair was starting to crack at the hinges, and those headphones are his lifeline in overwhelming situations. So when the bell rang, I wiped my hands on my jeans and headed to the door with a smile, already thinking about how happy he'd be when I gave them to him. Instead, I opened the door to a ghost. Tamara, my daughter, standing on my doorstep like the past 11 years hadn't happened. Like she hadn't walked out on her 4-year-old son without so much as a backward glance. Like she hadn't ignored every birthday, every Christmas, every single milestone. She looked different. Polished. Her hair was professionally styled, her makeup flawless. She wore a cream-colored blazer that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and her nails were freshly manicured. This wasn't the exhausted, resentful young woman who'd left a note on the kitchen counter and disappeared. This was someone who'd found money somewhere. And next to her stood a man in a suit that screamed wealth, tailored, pressed, probably worth $3,000 easy. His expression was neutral, professional, detached. He held a leather briefcase in one hand. "Hello, Mom," Tamara said. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. But there was something rehearsed about it, something that made my stomach clench. Tamara. I couldn't manage anything else. My throat had gone completely dry. The man in the suit stepped forward smoothly, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. "Mrs. King? My name is Richard Voss. I'm Ms. King's attorney." He extended his hand. I didn't take it. "Attorney." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Perhaps we could come inside to discuss this?" His tone was pleasant, reasonable. The kind of reasonable that makes you feel unreasonable for objecting. Discuss what? Tamara's eyes flickered past me, into the living room. I realized with a jolt what she was looking at. Jaden's laptop, sitting open on the coffee table, the screensaver cycling through images of code. His backpack slumped against the couch. The evidence of the life we'd built without her. "Mom, I know this is unexpected," Tamara began, and there were actual tears forming in her eyes. "But I've been in therapy. I've been working on myself. And I've realized I made a terrible mistake. Jaden is my son. I want to be his mother again. Richard Voss reached into his briefcase and pulled out a manila folder, thick with papers.
He held it out to me.
Mrs. King, this is a petition for custody and financial guardianship of Jaden King. We're prepared to present this to family court next month. The folder felt impossibly heavy in my hands. My fingers trembled as I opened it, and the words on the first page seemed to swim before my eyes. Petition for custody and financial guardianship. Financial guardianship. That's when I understood. This wasn't about Jaden. This wasn't about a mother's love or regret or redemption. This was about $6 million. My knees went weak. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself, the papers crinkling in my other hand. You can't be serious. I'm his mother, Mom. Tamara's voice cracked. I have rights. And Jaden, he needs proper guidance now. This kind of money, this kind of attention, it's too much for you to handle alone. I've handled everything alone for 11 years. The words exploded out of me, raw and furious. Richard Voss held up a calming hand. Mrs. King, we understand this is emotional, but we believe this is in Jaden's best interest. You'll be hearing from the court about a preliminary hearing date. They turned to leave, and I just stood there, frozen, watching them walk down my driveway. Watching Tamara climb into a car I knew she couldn't afford, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. The door closed behind me without my even realizing I'd moved. I stood in my living room, that folder clutched against my chest, and for the first time in 11 years, I felt genuinely afraid. Because the truth was simple and terrible. She was his biological mother. And in the eyes of the law, that might be all that mattered. But to understand why she came back now, why she thought she could just walk back into our lives and claim what we'd built, I need to tell you about the boy she left behind. The boy I raised from the ruins of her abandonment. The boy who would prove to be far more brilliant than either of us ever imagined. Jaden was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder 3 weeks after his 4th birthday. I remember that day with painful clarity, sitting in the developmental pediatrician's office, watching Tamara's face go pale as the doctor explained what the diagnosis meant. The therapies, the interventions, the uncertainty about whether Jaden would ever speak in full sentences, ever make eye contact, ever live independently. Tamara nodded through the whole appointment, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She asked all the right questions. She took the pamphlets and referral forms. But I saw something shift in her eyes that day, something dark and resentful creeping in where hope used to live. This isn't what I signed up for, she told me that night, after Jaden had finally fallen asleep. We were standing in her kitchen, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I can't do this, Mom. I just can't. Yes, you can, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We'll do it together. You're not alone. But I was wrong about that last part. Over the next few months, I watched my daughter disappear piece by piece. She stopped going to Jaden's therapy appointments, claiming she had to work extra shifts. She started staying out late, coming home smelling like cigarettes and cheap wine. She'd look at Jaden with something that wasn't quite love anymore, something closer to obligation, or worse, regret. The meltdowns were the hardest part. Jaden would have these episodes where the world became too much for him, too loud, too bright, too overwhelming. He'd scream and hit himself, tears streaming down his little face, and nothing we did seemed to help. Tamara would just stand there, frozen, her hands over her ears, looking like she wanted to run. And eventually she did run. It was a cold morning in November 8 years ago. I'd come over to help with Jaden's breakfast routine, something I'd been doing more and more because Tamara kept sleeping through her alarm. The apartment was eerily quiet when I let myself in with my key. Jaden was sitting on the living room floor in his pajamas, lining up his toy cars in perfect rows. He did that when he was anxious, creating order out of chaos. "Where's Mommy?" he asked without looking up. His voice was so small, so uncertain. That's when I saw the note on the kitchen counter, weighted down by Tamara's house keys. "Mom, I can't do this anymore. I'm not cut out to be his mother. You're better at this than I ever was." Please take care of him.
I'm sorry. T.
15 words. That's all my daughter left her son. 15 words and an empty closet where her clothes used to hang. I stood there reading that note 3 times for times, trying to make the words say something different. But they never changed. My daughter had abandoned her child like he was a broken appliance she was tired of trying to fix. Where's Mommy? Jaden asked again, still not looking at me. Mommy had to go away, sweetheart. I managed, my voice breaking. But Grandma's here. Grandma's always here. He went back to lining up his cars. No tears. No tantrum. Just careful, precise movements as he organized his small world into something that made sense. That's the moment I made my decision. I took early retirement from my job as a school librarian, cashing out my pension decades before I'd planned. I sold my house, the home I'd lived in for 30 years, where I'd raised Tamara, where every room held memories. I moved into Tamara's cramped 2-bedroom apartment and took over the lease. Everything I'd built for my future, I liquidated for Jaden's present. The early years were brutal, in ways I can barely articulate. Jaden didn't sleep through the night until he was 7. He had sensory issues that meant certain textures, sounds, and lights would send him into complete meltdowns. Getting him to eat anything beyond 3 specific foods took years of patient work. Some days he wouldn't speak at all. Other days he'd repeat the same phrase hundreds of times until I thought I'd lose my mind. But we had routines. We had structure. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, we had progress. I bought him his first pair of noise-canceling headphones when he was 6, using money I'd saved from skipping meals. They were bright blue, and he wore them constantly, to school, to therapy, to the grocery store. They became his shield against a world that felt too loud, too chaotic. Even now, at 16, he's never without a pair. Tamara never called, never sent a birthday card, never asked how he was doing. For 8 years, she was a ghost, and I was grateful for her absence. Jaden deserved consistency, not a mother who looked at him like he was a burden she'd finally escaped. But Jaden wasn't a burden. He was extraordinary. Around age 10, something shifted. His obsession with patterns and systems, which had manifested in arranging toys and memorizing bus schedules, suddenly found a new outlet. Technology. Specifically, computers and coding. I'd bought him a used tablet from a thrift store, thinking it might help with his educational apps. Within a week, he'd figured out how to access the back-end settings. Within a month, he was teaching himself basic programming through YouTube videos. Grandma look. He'd show me screens full of code that looked like alien language to me. I made this work. It does what I tell it to do. That's what he loved about coding, I realized. The logic. The predictability. The way computers didn't have confusing facial expressions or sarcasm or social rules that made no sense.
Code was honest.
Code was pure. By age 12, he was spending 6 hours per day on programming forums, teaching himself languages I couldn't pronounce. Python, JavaScript, something called C++. His teachers told me he was gifted, possibly genius level in mathematics and logic. For his 12th birthday, I scraped together enough money to buy him a real laptop, refurbished, but powerful enough for his needs. He cried when he opened it. Actually cried, which was rare for him. He hugged me tight, his face pressed against my shoulder.
Thank you, Grandma.
Best gift ever. I love you so much. Those were the moments that made everything worth it. Every sacrifice. Every sleepless night. Every dollar I didn't have. I watched him carry that laptop to his room, already opening it before he'd even sat down at his desk. I remember smiling, thinking how far we'd come. How proud I was of him. I never imagined that the laptop I bought him for his 12th birthday would change everything, would bring Silicon Valley knocking at our door, would put millions of dollars in his name, and would resurrect the ghost of the mother who'd abandoned him when he needed her most. Jaden's obsession with nutrition started the way most of his interests did, suddenly, intensely, and with laser-focused precision that bordered on compulsive. He was 13 when he began photographing every meal, every snack, every bite of food that entered our apartment. At first, I thought it was just another phase, another way his beautiful, different mind was trying to make sense of the world. He'd take pictures with his phone from multiple angles, adjusting the lighting, making sure every component was visible. "Why do you do that, sweetheart?" I asked him one evening as he photographed his dinner. Chicken breast, steamed broccoli, and brown rice, portions measured with mathematical exactness. "Patterns, Grandma. Everything has patterns. Food has patterns too. Calories, proteins, fats, carbohydrates. But nobody sees them. They just eat and guess. Guessing is inefficient." That was so perfectly Jaden, finding chaos in something the rest of us took for granted, then seeking to impose order on it. The late-night coding sessions started around the same time. I'd wake up at 2 in the morning to use the bathroom and see the blue glow of his laptop screen bleeding out from under his bedroom door. The first few times, I worried he wasn't sleeping enough. But when I gently suggested he needed rest, he'd look at me with those earnest eyes and say, "I'm building something. Something important. Almost done, Grandma." So I let him work, bringing him warm milk at odd hours, making sure he at least had something in his stomach. He'd barely acknowledge me when I entered his room, his fingers flying across the keyboard, his eyes fixed on lines of code scrolling down the screen, his noise-canceling headphones creating a cocoon of concentration. But he'd always reach for my hand. Just for a second. A quick squeeze, his way of saying he knew I was there, that he appreciated me even when words were too hard. Those moments meant everything to me. It took him 8 months to build Bitewise. 8 months of obsessive coding, teaching himself machine learning and artificial intelligence through online courses and documentation that would have made my head spin. He barely talked about what he was creating, just worked with singular determination. Then one morning, just after his 14th birthday, he came to breakfast and slid his phone across the table to me. "It's finished. Take a picture of your oatmeal." I humored him, snapping a quick photo of my breakfast bowl. Within 3 seconds, the app displayed a complete nutritional breakdown: calories, protein, fiber, vitamins, even micronutrients I'd never heard of. It had identified the oatmeal, the blueberries, the honey, the almonds, and calculated everything. "Jaden, this is incredible." I stared at the screen, genuinely amazed. "How did you teach it to do this?" "Neural networks. Image recognition algorithms. Nutritional databases. The app learns. Gets smarter. The more people use it, the more accurate it becomes." He was stimming, rocking slightly, a sign he was excited but trying to regulate himself. "I want to publish it. Make it available. Help people understand what they're eating. Then let's do it." I didn't think about money. The thought never crossed my mind. I just wanted to support my grandson's passion, to give him something to be proud of, to show him that his different way of seeing the world had value. We launched Bitewise on the App Store in February. I helped him set up the developer account, navigate the submission process, write the description. We priced it at $2.99, Jaden's idea, because people don't trust free things, but they'll try cheap things. For the first 2 months, nothing much happened. A handful of downloads. A few positive reviews. Jaden checked the statistics obsessively, disappointed, but not discouraged. He kept refining the algorithm, adding features, expanding the food database. Then something shifted. A fitness influencer discovered the app and posted about it. Then a nutritionist blogger. Then a YouTube health channel. Suddenly, downloads were climbing, hundreds per day, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Jaden was ecstatic. He'd come home from school, immediately check the download numbers, and show me the growing count with barely contained joy. This wasn't about money for him. It was about validation. About knowing that something he'd created was helping people.
"Look, Grandma.
50,000 users now. 50,000 people using my code. Understanding their food better. Making healthier choices." His smile was radiant, unguarded in a way it rarely was. "I did that. I made something that matters."
"You did, sweetheart."
I'm so proud. And I was bursting with pride. We were sitting at the kitchen table on a Tuesday evening in late September, almost exactly 2 years after he'd started coding Bitewise, when the email arrived. I was helping Jaden with his calculus homework, something he didn't really need help with but liked doing together anyway, when his laptop dinged with a new message notification. He glanced at the screen, frowned slightly, then went very, very still. "Grandma, you should read this." The email was from Ellison Ventures, a Silicon Valley venture capital firm. I'd heard the name before. They invested in major tech companies, the kind that made headlines. The message was formal but enthusiastic. "Dear Jaden King, we've been impressed by Bitewise growth trajectory and innovative approach to nutritional tracking. Your use of AI and machine learning demonstrates sophisticated technical capability. We'd like to discuss a potential investment opportunity. We're prepared to offer $6 million for a 40% equity stake in Bitewise, with additional funding available for scaling and development. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to arrange a meeting." I read it 3 times. The number didn't make sense. $6 million. For an app my teenage grandson had built in his bedroom. Is this real? My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "I think so. Let me verify." Jaden's fingers flew across the keyboard, checking the sender's credentials, the company website, news articles about their investments. "It's legitimate. They're real. This is real." I couldn't breathe. My hand started shaking, and I had to set down the laptop before I dropped it. $6 million. For Jaden, my sweet, brilliant boy who'd been abandoned by his own mother, who I'd raised on a fixed income and savings that were nearly depleted. We could pay for college, for better therapies, for a safer neighborhood, for everything he deserved. But even in that moment of overwhelming shock and joy, a tiny voice in the back of my mind whispered a warning I should have heeded. I should have known money changes everything. Even people you thought were gone forever. Even ghosts you thought were finally, mercifully laid to rest. The first sign something was wrong came 3 weeks after we'd signed the investment deal with Ellison Ventures. I was taking out the trash one evening when I noticed a silver sedan parked across the street. Nothing unusual about that. Street parking was common in our neighborhood. But something made me look twice. The car was too nice for our block. Too clean. And there was someone sitting in the driver's seat, just sitting there, not getting out. I stood by the dumpster longer than necessary, pretending to adjust the trash bag while watching the car from the corner of my eye. The figure inside seemed to be looking at our building. Just looking. Not on their phone. Not reading. Just watching. When I went back upstairs, I checked from the window. The car was still there. It stayed for another hour, then drove away. Probably just nothing, I muttered to myself. But my stomach was tight with unease. 2 days later, Mrs. Kowalski from apartment 3B stopped me in the lobby. "Loretta, someone was asking about your grandson yesterday." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. A woman, very well dressed, said she was doing a story for the local paper about successful young people in the neighborhood. My blood went cold. "What did you tell her?" "Oh, nothing much. Just that Jaden was a sweet boy, very smart, keeps to himself mostly." "Was that wrong?" "She seemed nice enough." "No, it's fine. Thank you for telling me." I forced a smile, but my mind was racing. What journalist? What story? I went online that night and searched for any recent articles about Jaden. That's when I found it, a piece on TechCrunch titled, "Teen Autism Prodigy Builds $6 million AI Nutrition App." The article was glowing, detailed, and contained information I'd never shared publicly. It mentioned our neighborhood, Jaden's school, even quoted some of his GitHub comments about his coding philosophy. Someone had done real research. Deep research. The friend request came the next morning. I didn't use social media much, but I had a Facebook account to keep in touch with old colleagues. The request was from someone named Jennifer Martinez, with a profile picture of a smiling blonde woman and only 12 friends. Generic posts about coffee and sunsets. A fake account. Obviously fake, once I looked closely enough. I declined it, but the request rattled me more than I wanted to admit. I'm being paranoid, I told myself while making Jaden's lunch. This is what happens when your grandson becomes successful. People get curious. It's normal. It's fine. But it didn't feel fine. The real alarm bells started ringing when I took Jaden to the park that Saturday, something we did every weekend, part of our routine. He liked to sit on the same bench and code on his laptop while I read nearby. The fresh air was good for both of us. I was deep in my book when I noticed a woman standing near the playground, holding up her phone like she was taking pictures. Of the trees, maybe. Of the scenery. Except her camera was pointed directly at our bench. I stood up immediately, my protective instincts roaring to life. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" The woman startled, lowered her phone quickly, and speed walked away without answering. She was wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, her face deliberately obscured. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Jaden looked up from his laptop, confused by my sudden movement. "Nothing, sweetheart. Nothing's wrong." But my hands were shaking as I packed up our things. "Let's go home early today. I'm tired." That night, lying awake in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. Someone was circling us, gathering information, preparing for something. But what? And who? I didn't know then that 800 miles away, in a cramped studio apartment in Phoenix, Tamara was sitting at her kitchen table reading that same TechCrunch article. She'd stumbled across it by accident, scrolling through tech news during her lunch break at the call center where she worked. She'd almost scrolled past it, another startup story, who cared, until the name caught her eye. Jaden King, 16 years old.
Autistic.
$6 million. Her son. The son she'd left behind 8 years ago because she couldn't handle the meltdowns, couldn't handle the therapies, couldn't handle the weight of raising a child who saw the world differently. Tamara read the article 3 times, her coffee growing cold beside her. $6 million. Her son, her blood, her genes, her legal child, was worth $6 million. She thought about her own life in those years since she'd left. The string of failed relationships with men who promised stability and delivered disappointment. The mounting credit card debt.
The dead-end jobs.
The tiny apartment with water-stained ceilings and neighbors who fought at 3 in the morning. She'd gone to therapy, sure, mostly because a boyfriend had insisted, and she'd talked about her regret because that's what the therapist wanted to hear. But regret doesn't pay bills. Regret doesn't erase debt. Regret doesn't buy you a new life. She told herself for years that leaving was the right choice, that Jaden was better off with her mother, that she'd done everyone a favor by removing herself from a situation she couldn't handle. Now, staring at that article, at the photo of Jaden holding his laptop, his face serious and focused, looking so grown up she barely recognized him, Tamara felt something shift inside her. Not maternal love. Not guilt. Something closer to opportunity. She took a screenshot of the article. Then she Googled custody rights biological parent. Then how to claim child's assets. Then family lawyers Phoenix. The next morning, she called in sick to work and spent 6 hours researching, planning, and eventually contacting Richard Voss, an attorney who specialized in family law and had a reputation for aggressive tactics. "I want my son back," she told him during their consultation. "And I want to protect his interests. His grandmother is elderly, probably not equipped to handle this kind of money. I'm his mother. I have rights." Richard Voss smiled. He'd handled cases like this before. "Let me look into this, Ms. King. If what you're telling me is accurate, you have a very strong case." 2 weeks later, they boarded a plane to my city.
I didn't know any of this was happening.
I was just trying to keep Jaden safe, keep our routine stable, keep our little world intact. Then came that knock on the door. That terrible, life-shattering knock. And suddenly, 8 years of absence stood in front of me. Dressed in designer clothes I knew she couldn't afford, flanked by a lawyer whose suit probably cost more than my monthly rent. The ghost had returned, and she'd brought weapons. After they left, I stood frozen in my living room for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The legal documents were still clutched in my trembling hands, the words blurring together as my eyes filled with tears I refused to let fall. Not yet. Not while Jaden might see. I forced myself to move, to breathe, to think. I walked to the kitchen and set the papers on the counter, smoothing them out with shaking fingers. That's when I saw it, One of Jaden's drawings from when he was 6, still magnetized to the fridge. A stick figure with wild brown hair labeled Grandma in his careful, deliberate handwriting. A smaller stick figure holding her hand, labeled me. Tamara had seen that drawing. I'd watched her eyes land on it, seen something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or discomfort, before she'd looked away quickly, pretending she hadn't noticed her own absence immortalized in crayon on a refrigerator door. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called the only lawyer I knew, Martin Rodriguez, who'd helped me with my will 2 years ago. He was semi-retired now, mostly did simple legal work for seniors in the community, but he'd know what to do. He had to. Loretta, slow down. Take a breath. His voice was calm, grandfatherly. Now tell me again what happened. I explained everything. Tamara's appearance, the petition, the custody claim, the financial guardianship. The words tumbled out in a panicked rush. The silence on the other end lasted too long. Martin, are you there? I'm here. Loretta, this isn't my area of expertise. You need a family law attorney, someone who handles custody cases regularly. But I can make some calls. Let me see who I can find. 6 hours later, I was sitting across from Martha King in her modest office downtown. She was in her mid-60s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her desk was piled with case files, and the walls were covered with framed certificates and photos of children. Her clients' children, I assumed. Successful cases. I needed to be a successful case. Martha read through the petition carefully, her expression growing more serious with each page. When she finally looked up, I could see the answer in her eyes before she even spoke. Mrs. King, call me Loretta, please. Loretta, I'm going to be honest with you, because you deserve honesty, not false hope. She folded her hands on the desk. Your daughter has a case. A strong one, actually. The words hit me like a physical blow. But she abandoned him. She left him when he was 4 years old. She's been gone for 8 years. I know, and that matters. But legally, she's still his biological mother. She never formally terminated her parental rights. And now that Jaden has significant assets, the court will want to ensure those assets are managed properly. I've managed everything properly. My voice rose despite my best efforts. I've raised him, fed him, taken him to every therapy appointment, sat with him through every meltdown. Where was she? I believe you, and will present all of that evidence. But Tamara's attorney is going to argue that she was young and overwhelmed, that she's been in therapy, that she's changed and wants to be part of her son's life now. The courts like reunification stories. They want to believe parents can change. I felt sick. Actually physically sick. So, what are you saying? I'm going to lose him. Martha's expression softened. I'm saying we have a fight ahead of us. The money complicates everything. If Jaden was just a child with no assets, this would be more straightforward. But $6 million changes the equation. The court will be very careful about who has access to that money. I don't want his money. I never wanted his money. The tears I'd been holding back finally spilled over. I just want my grandson. I just want to keep him safe. I know that. And we're going to make sure the judge knows that too. Martha pulled a tissue from a box and handed it to me. But I need you to understand, this is going to be hard. Tamara has legal rights. The best we can hope for is to demonstrate that you've been Jaden's de facto parent, that you're the stable presence in his life, and that disrupting that stability would harm him. Can we win? Martha hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. We have a chance. But I won't lie to you, we might lose. The drive home was a blur. I barely remember the route, barely registered the other cars. My mind was spinning with worst-case scenarios, imagining Tamara taking Jaden away, imagining him in some unfamiliar place with a mother who didn't understand his needs, his routines, his whole world. When I got home, Jaden was in his room, exactly where I'd left him. His door was slightly ajar, and I could see him through the gap, sitting at his desk, laptop open, noise-canceling headphones on, fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced precision. The blue glow of the screen illuminated his face, highlighting the concentration in his eyes. He looked so peaceful, so safe, so completely unaware that his entire life might be about to change. I watched him work for a long moment, memorizing the scene. The way his shoulders hunched slightly when he was deep in thought. The way he'd occasionally push his glasses up his nose without breaking his rhythm. The way he'd rock slightly back and forth when he was excited about solving a problem. 8 years of these moments. 8 years of learning his patterns, his needs, his language. 8 years of building a life together from the ruins of Tamara's abandonment. How could a judge give him to someone who didn't know him at all? Jaden must have sensed me watching because he suddenly turned, pulling one earphone off. "Grandma? You're home. Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just had some errands to run." "You hungry?" "Not yet. Working on something. Almost done." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that made my heart ache. 10 more minutes. "Take your time." He went back to his coding, and I went to the kitchen, pulling out ingredients for his favorite dinner. Chicken teriyaki with white rice and steamed carrots, cut into specific sizes because texture mattered to him. My hands moved automatically through the familiar motions while my mind raced. Martha had said we had 2 weeks until the preliminary hearing. 2 weeks to prepare. 2 weeks to gather evidence. 2 weeks before I'd stand in a courtroom and fight for the child I'd raised as my own. But what if we lost? What if 2 weeks from now, Jaden was ripped from the only stable home he'd ever known? I looked at those drawings on the fridge again. Years of artwork, layers of memories magnetized to cheap metal. Every drawing showed the same 2 figures, Grandma and Jaden. Never 3 figures. Never Tamara. She'd noticed them. She'd seen her own absence reflected back at her in her son's childhood art. And she'd looked away, uncomfortable with the truth those simple crayon drawings told. That night, after Jaden went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with Martha's business card in my hand and Tamara's petition spread out before me. The legal language was cold, transactional. Biological rights, parental reunification, asset management, best interests of the child. The best interests of the child. That's what this was supposed to be about. But I knew better now. This wasn't about Jaden's best interests. This was about $6 million and a mother who'd only remembered she had a son when he became valuable. Martha said we'd have our day in court in 2 weeks. 2 weeks to prepare our case. 2 weeks to convince a judge that love wasn't about biology. It was about showing up day after day, year after year, through the hard moments and the beautiful ones. But as I watched Jaden that night through his bedroom door, still coding like nothing had changed, lost in his safe world of logic and patterns, I felt something cold settle in my chest. I might lose him. Despite everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd given, everything we'd built together, I might actually lose him to the woman who'd thrown him away like garbage. The next 2 weeks became a blur of preparation that felt simultaneously urgent and hopeless. Martha had me gather everything, every single piece of evidence that proved I'd been Jaden's primary caregiver for 8 years. I dug through boxes and filing cabinets, assembling a mountain of documentation, medical records with my name listed as guardian, therapy appointment logs I'd meticulously kept, school records showing me as the emergency contact, bank statements proving I'd paid for everything, photos of birthday parties and holidays and ordinary Tuesday afternoons. 8 years of proof. 8 years of my life distilled into manila folders and binder clips. "This is good," Martha said, reviewing the materials in her office. "Very thorough. But there's something else you need to prepare for." My stomach dropped. What now? The judge has ordered supervised visitation before the hearing. 3 sessions. Tamara has a right to see her son, and the court wants to observe their interaction. It's standard in reunification cases. Reunification? The word tasted bitter. You can't reunify something that was never together in the first place. I know, but we have to comply. Martha's expression was sympathetic but firm. The visits will be supervised by a social worker who will write a report for the judge. Make sure Jaden understands he doesn't have to pretend everything is fine. Honest reactions only. That evening, I sat Jaden down to explain. I expected resistance, anxiety, maybe even a meltdown. Instead, he just nodded calmly. Okay, Grandma. I'll see her. You don't have to, sweetheart. If you're not comfortable. No, it's fine. I want to. His voice was steady, almost too steady. It's important. Trust me, okay? Something about his tone unsettled me, but I couldn't pinpoint why. The first visitation was held at a family services center, a sterile room with uncomfortable furniture and children's toys that were too young for Jaden. A social worker named Patricia sat in the corner with a clipboard, observing silently. Tamara arrived 15 minutes early, carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. She dressed carefully, modest but stylish, projecting maternal warmth without trying too hard. She'd practiced this, I realized. Rehearsed it. Jaden. Oh my goodness. Look how tall you are. She moved toward him with arms outstretched. Jaden stepped back slightly, not quite a flinch, but close. Hello, Tamara. Not Mom. Just Tamara. I felt a small surge of vindication. I brought you some things. She set the bags down, pulling out a top-of-the-line gaming laptop, designer headphones, and several expensive tech gadgets. I know you love technology. I wanted to get you the best. Jaden examined the items with polite interest. Thank you. These are high quality. Only the best for my brilliant son. Tamara's smile was too bright, too practiced. I've been reading about Bitewise. I'm so proud of you. What you've accomplished is incredible. Grandma helped me. She bought me my first laptop. Taught me discipline. Supported me always. Of course, of course. Your grandmother did a wonderful job while I was away. Tamara's voice caught slightly, and I saw Patricia make a note. But I'm here now, and I want to be part of your life again. We have so much to catch up on. She spent the next 40 minutes asking him questions about school, about coding, about his interests. Jaden answered politely, but minimally. And I noticed something strange. He kept one hand in his hoodie pocket the entire time, occasionally adjusting something inside. When the session ended, Tamara hugged him goodbye. Jaden tolerated it, arms at his sides, not returning the embrace. But he didn't pull away either. That went well, Tamara said to Patricia, too loudly, making sure I heard. We're connecting. I can feel it. The second visitation happened 3 days later. This time, Tamara brought a professional camera. I thought we could take some photos together. Mother and son. We need to document our journey, don't you think? She positioned herself next to Jaden, her arm around his shoulders, smile wide and perfect. Jaden cooperated, standing still while she took dozens of selfies. She posted them immediately to social media. I found out later from Martha, who was monitoring Tamara's accounts. The captions made me sick. Reunited with my brilliant son after too long apart. Sometimes life takes us on different paths, but love always finds a way home. #ProudMom, #SecondChances, #FamilyFirst. During that visit, Tamara's carefully maintained facade started slipping. She talked about our future together, about how we'll need to make smart decisions about the money, about opportunities we can't waste. What opportunities? Jaden asked, his voice neutral. Well, with $6 million, we could invest properly. Move somewhere better. Maybe California, near the tech industry. Get you into programs that can really develop your potential. She leaned closer, confidential. Your grandmother means well, but she doesn't understand this world. The business world. The tech world. You need someone who can guide you properly. Grandma understands me. Of course she does. But there's understanding, and then there's strategic thinking. Financial planning. You're too young to handle this alone, and she's too old to really grasp the opportunities here. Patricia was writing furiously. Jaden just nodded, his expression unreadable. And again, his hand stayed in his pocket. The third visitation was when Tamara got truly comfortable. Too comfortable. She talked for nearly an hour about investment strategies, about hiring proper financial advisors, about protecting your assets from people who might take advantage. The implication was clear. She meant me. Her own mother, who'd raised her grandson alone. We could buy a house, Jaden. A real house, not an apartment. You could have a proper workspace. The best equipment. Maybe hire other developers to work with you, scale Bitewise up properly. Her eyes were bright with plans that had nothing to do with his well-being. This money is a gift. We can't squander it. Jaden asked quietly. Well, you're my son. Your success is my success. We're family. She reached over and squeezed his hand. Family takes care of each other, right? Right. His voice was flat, emotionless. Throughout all 3 visits, I sat in the waiting area, my stomach in knots. Each time Jaden emerged, I searched his face for signs of distress, confusion, or worse, signs that he was being swayed by her promises and gifts. But he remained calm, almost eerily calm. How was it? I'd ask.
Fine, Grandma.
Just fine. Then he'd go to his room and code, like nothing had happened. It was eating me alive. Was he actually considering her offer? Did he resent me for not being able to give him expensive things? Did he see her as a better option now that he understood what money could buy? I felt betrayed by my own thoughts, guilty for doubting him. But fear makes you doubt everything. The night before the court hearing, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, playing out tomorrow's scenarios in my head. All of them ended badly. Around midnight, I heard Jaden's door open. His footsteps padded softly to my room. Grandma, you awake? I'm awake, sweetheart. I sat up, turning on the bedside lamp. He stood in my doorway, clutching something I hadn't seen in years, his old stuffed elephant, Mr. Trunk, that I'd bought him when he was 5. The elephant was worn and faded, one ear slightly torn from years of being carried everywhere during his most anxious periods. I brought him to the visits, Jaden said. In my backpack. For comfort. Old patterns help. I know, sweetheart. My voice cracked. Are you scared about tomorrow?
No.
He came and sat on the edge of my bed, something he rarely did. Grandma, tomorrow in court, just let her talk. Let her say whatever she wants. Don't interrupt. Don't argue. Just let her talk. My heart stopped. Jaden, what do you mean? He looked at me with those serious eyes, so much older than 16. I promise you, Grandma, everything will work out. Just trust me. Let her talk. Then he hugged me, a real, tight hug that lasted several seconds, and went back to his room. I sat there in the dark, clutching my blankets, trying to understand what he meant. What was he planning? What did he know that I didn't? Tomorrow, just let her talk. I promise, Grandma. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Institutional beige walls, fluorescent lighting, a handful of wooden benches. It felt more like a principal's office than a place where someone's entire world could be dismantled. Judge Andrea Morrison presided, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expression that gave nothing away. She'd reviewed all the preliminary materials, Martha had told me. She knew the facts. But facts and justice don't always align. Tamara's lawyer, Richard Voss, went first. He was polished, articulate, and devastatingly effective. Your Honor, this case is fundamentally about reunification and redemption. My client, Tamara King, made a difficult choice 8 years ago when she was a young, overwhelmed single mother facing circumstances she wasn't equipped to handle. She did what she thought was best for her son. She placed him with his grandmother temporarily while she worked on herself. I nearly stood up to object. Temporarily? She'd abandoned him. But Martha's hand on my arm kept me seated. Ms. King has spent these years in intensive therapy, addressing the postpartum depression and anxiety that impaired her judgment. She has stable employment now, a support network, and most importantly, a genuine desire to be the mother her son deserves. Then Tamara took the stand. She wore a simple navy dress, expensive but understated, and minimal makeup that somehow made her tears more visible when they came. And oh, the tears came right on cue. I was 23 when Jaden was diagnosed, she began, her voice trembling. I was alone, scared, and completely unprepared. I watched other mothers handle their children with such grace, and I couldn't. Every meltdown felt like my failure. Every therapy appointment was a reminder that I wasn't enough. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I genuinely believed he was better off with my mother. She was patient, experienced, capable. Everything I wasn't. And now, Richard prompted gently. Now I've done the work. 8 years of therapy. I understand my mistakes. I understand what my son needs. And I'm ready to be his mother. She looked directly at the judge. He's accomplished something incredible, and I want to be there to guide him through what comes next. Not for the money. I don't care about the money. I care about my son. Liar. The words screamed in my head, but I stayed silent. Her therapist testified next, confirming years of sessions focused on maternal regret and healing from past trauma. Then a friend, someone I'd never heard of, who claimed Tamara had spoken often about wanting to reconnect with Jaden when the time was right. It was a performance, carefully choreographed, and it was working. I could see it in the judge's expression, sympathy, consideration, the wheels turning toward reunification. Then it was our turn. Martha called me to the stand, and I told the truth. All of it. The years of therapies I'd driven him to, the meltdowns I'd navigated, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices. I showed photos, Jaden's first day of school, his birthday parties, ordinary moments that added up to a life. I'm not his biological mother, I said, my voice breaking. But I've been his mother in every way that matters. I know his routines. I know what sounds hurt his ears. I know that he needs exactly 7 minutes warning before transitions. I know he codes best between midnight and 3 a.m. I know him. And you believe Ms. King doesn't? The judge asked. I believe Ms. King left when things were hard and came back when things were profitable. That's not love. That's opportunism. Tamara's lawyer objected. The judge sustained it. But the point was made. Medical experts testified about Jaden's needs, the importance of routine, stability, familiar caregivers. His teachers spoke about my involvement, my attendance at every parent conference, every IEP meeting. But I could see the judge wavering. Biology is powerful.
Rights are rights.
And Tamara's performance had been convincing. Judge Morrison looked at her notes, then at Jaden, who'd been sitting quietly beside Martha throughout the proceedings. He wore the burgundy sweater I'd knitted him 3 years ago, slightly too small now, the sleeves ending just above his wrists, but he'd insisted on wearing it today. This is highly irregular, the judge said slowly, but given Jaden's age and the unique circumstances of this case, I'd like to hear from him directly. Jaden, would you be willing to speak? My heart seized. Jaden hated public speaking. He rarely volunteered words, even in familiar settings. This would be torture for him. But he stood up calmly. Yes, Your Honor. I'll speak. He walked to the witness stand with steady steps, carrying his tablet. His movements were deliberate, controlled. This was Jaden in his element. When he had a plan, he could execute it perfectly. The bailiff swore him in. Jaden sat down, adjusted his glasses, and looked directly at the judge. My name is Jaden King. I'm 16 years old. I have autism spectrum disorder. I built an app called Bitewise, and I'm here to provide evidence. His voice was clear, strong, nothing like the halting, minimal speech most people associated with him. Tamara shifted uncomfortably in her seat. During the 3 supervised visitations, Jaden continued, I recorded every conversation using a device in my pocket. Audio recordings only. I want to play them for you now. Richard Voss jumped up. Objection. This is. I'll allow it, Judge Morrison said, leaning forward with sudden interest. Continue, Jaden. Jaden connected his tablet to the courtroom's audio system. The first recording played. Tamara's voice filled the room, bright and enthusiastic. With $6 million, we could invest properly. Move somewhere better. Maybe California, near the tech industry. Get you into programs that can really develop your potential. Then the second recording. Once we get control of the account, we'll need to make smart financial decisions. Your grandmother means well, but She doesn't understand this world. The third was most damning. This money is a gift, Jaden. We can't squander it.
We could buy a house.
You could have proper equipment. We're family. Your success is my success. Family takes care of each other. The courtroom was dead silent except for Tamara's recorded voice, stripped of the practiced emotion from her testimony.
Cold.
Calculating. Focused entirely on the money she claimed not to care about. I also created a data analysis, Jaden said, pulling up a screen on his tablet. A quantitative comparison. The display was simple, devastating. Mother present. 0 days out of 2,920 days. Grandmother present. 2,920 days out of 2,920 days. Birthday celebrations attended. Mother 0, grandmother 12. Therapy appointments. Mother 0, grandmother 847. School meetings. Mother 0, grandmother 156. Late night coding sessions with warm milk. Mother 0, grandmother too many to count. Tamara's face had gone white. Richard Voss was whispering frantically to her, but she wasn't listening. Her carefully constructed mask was cracking in real time. Jaden turned to face his mother directly. You said love brought you back, but the recordings show money brought you back. You said you've changed, but the data shows you only changed when I became valuable. Jaden, please. Tamara started, her voice breaking for real now, not performance, but genuine panic. My grandmother taught me that love is measured in moments, Jaden continued, his voice steady and clear. Not words. Not promises. Moments. She's been there for every single one of mine. The good ones, the hard ones, the ordinary ones that add up to a life. He paused, adjusted his glasses again. My mother has given me 0 moments. The app is code. Code is logic. Logic says, Grandma stays. The courtroom erupted, Richard objecting, Tamara trying to speak, the bailiff calling for order. But through it all, Jaden sat calmly on the witness stand, his hands folded in his lap, wearing that too small burgundy sweater that his grandmother had knitted with love. Judge Morrison's gavel came down hard.
Once. Twice.
3 times. Order. I will have order. She waited for silence, then looked at Jaden with something like awe. Thank you for your testimony, Jaden. You may step down. As Jaden walked back to his seat, he caught my eye, and he smiled, small, private, just for me.
He'd known.
All along, he'd known exactly what he was doing. My brilliant, beautiful boy had saved us both. Judge Morrison took exactly 47 seconds to review her notes. 47 seconds that felt like 47 years while I held my breath, my hand gripping the edge of the bench so hard my knuckles went white. When she looked up, her expression was resolute. I've presided over family court for 19 years. I've heard countless reunification cases, and I believe deeply in the possibility of redemption and second chances. She paused, her gaze moving from Tamara to me to Jaden. But redemption requires genuine change, not opportunism disguised as maternal love. Tamara's lawyer started to stand, but the judge held up her hand. The evidence presented today makes several things clear. First, that Ms. Tamara King voluntarily abandoned her son for 8 years without contact, support, or interest in his well-being. Second, that her sudden desire for reunification coincides suspiciously with her son's financial success. Third, and most importantly, that the child in question has clearly expressed his wishes through both logical analysis and emotional testimony. Judge Morrison looked directly at Tamara. Your recordings demonstrate that your primary interest lies in Jaden's assets, not his well-being. Your own words condemn your motives. Your Honor, please. Richard Voss tried. I'm not finished. The judge's voice was steel. However, I also acknowledge that people can change.
True change.
Not the performance we witnessed today, but genuine growth over time. She picked up her gavel. Therefore, my ruling is as follows. The petition for custody is denied. The petition for financial guardianship is denied. Loretta King's legal guardianship of Jaden King is affirmed and will remain in effect until Jaden reaches legal majority. Relief crashed over me like a wave. I heard myself make a sound, half sob, half gasp, and Martha's hand squeezed my shoulder. However, the judge continued, I am granting supervised visitation rights to Ms. Tamara King. 1 visit per month, supervised by a court-appointed social worker, should Jaden consent to such visits. This allows the door to remain open for genuine relationship building, if that is truly what Ms. King desires. The gavel came down with decisive finality. This court is adjourned. The courtroom remained frozen for a moment, as if everyone needed time to process what had just happened. Then chaos erupted, Martha gathering papers, Richard speaking urgently to Tamara, the bailiff calling the next case. I turned to Jaden. He was already looking at me, his expression calm, peaceful even. We won, Grandma. Logic always wins. I pulled him into a hug right there in the courtroom, not caring who saw, not caring about protocol. You brilliant, incredible boy. You saved us. You saved me first, he said quietly into my shoulder. 8 years ago. I just returned the favor. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Tamara collapsed against the wall. She was crying loud, messy sobs that drew stares from people waiting for other hearings. Whether the tears were genuine remorse or frustration at losing access to $6 million, I honestly couldn't tell. Richard Voss stood beside her, professional detachment back in place. I'll send you my final invoice, Miss King. I'm sorry we didn't get the outcome you wanted. He walked away without another word, leaving Tamara slumped against the institutional beige wall, her perfect facade completely shattered. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something almost like pity. She was still my daughter, still the little girl I'd raised, now a grown woman who'd made terrible choices and lost something she might have genuinely wanted to reclaim. But then I looked at Jaden standing beside me, wearing that burgundy sweater, and the pity evaporated. She'd had her chance. 8 years of chances. She'd made her choice. Martha hugged me fiercely in the courthouse parking lot. That boy saved you both. I've never seen anything like that in my entire career. The recordings, the data analysis, brilliant. He's full of surprises, I said, watching Jaden walk ahead of us toward the car, his gait slightly awkward but purposeful. Take care of each other, Martha said. And call me if Tamara violates any of the court's orders. We have ironclad protections in place now. The next few weeks passed in a strange, suspended calm. We established a trust for Jaden's assets with Martha's help, ironclad legal protections that meant no one, not even me, could access the money without multiple approvals and demonstrated need for Jaden's benefit. Financial advisors, oversight committees, annual audits. Everything transparent and protected. I don't need the money now anyway, Jaden said when I explained the setup. The app runs itself. I just want a code. And be with you. I thought Tamara would disappear again after the hearing, that she'd slink back to wherever she'd come from, lick her wounds, and forget about us all over again. But she didn't. 6 weeks after the ruling, I got a call from the court-appointed social worker. Tamara had requested her first supervised visitation. No lawyer this time. Just her. You don't have to go, I told Jaden. The judge said only if you consent. He thought about it for a long moment, then nodded. I'll go. One time. I want to hear what she says when she's not performing for a judge. The visit was held at the same family services center, but this time felt different. Tamara arrived alone, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. No designer clothes. No shopping bags full of expensive gifts. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying recently. Thank you for coming, she said quietly when Jaden entered. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, he replied honestly. They sat across from each other, the social worker in her corner with her clipboard, me in the waiting room with my stomach in knots. 45 minutes later, Jaden emerged. His expression was unreadable. How was it? I asked as we walked to the car. Different.
She apologized.
Really apologized. Said she knew the money made it look bad, that she understood why I didn't trust her, that she didn't expect forgiveness. He paused. She didn't mention the app once. Didn't ask about money. Just asked about my routines, my coding, what I like to eat now. Do you believe her? I don't know yet. Data requires multiple points to establish a pattern. One visit isn't enough information. He looked at me seriously. But I'm willing to collect more data, if you're okay with that. That night, we had the conversation I'd been avoiding about forgiveness, boundaries, and what family really means. Grandma, can I ask you something? Jaden was sitting on the couch, his laptop balanced on his knees, me in my reading chair with a book I wasn't actually reading. Always, sweetheart. Do you forgive her? For leaving us? I set down my book, considering the question carefully. Forgiveness is complicated. I don't hate her. I'm not consumed by anger. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. And it definitely doesn't mean giving her access to hurt us again. So boundaries instead of walls? His therapist had taught him that distinction. Boundaries protect, walls isolate. Exactly that. She can have supervised visits if you want them. She can prove through actions, not words, that she's changed. But our life, our routine, our home, that stays protected. That stays ours. Jaden nodded slowly, processing. Then he did something rare. He set down his laptop, crossed the room, and hugged me. A real, sustained hug that lasted nearly a full minute. You're my real mother, he said into my shoulder. The one who counts. Biology doesn't make a parent. Showing up makes a parent. I held him tight, this boy who rarely tolerated physical contact, who was giving me the gift of his trust and affection. You're my heart, Jaden. You always have been. The next day, I took down one of his old drawings from the fridge, the one with the stick figure labeled Grandma and a huge crayon red heart. I bought a simple frame and hung it in the living room where I'd see it every day. A reminder that love isn't about perfection. It's not about biology or legal rights or who can buy the most expensive gifts. Love is measured in moments. In warm milk at 2 a.m. In learning what sounds hurt. In knitting sweaters that get outgrown. In showing up day after day, year after year, through the beautiful moments and the impossible ones. 8 years of moments. 2,920 days of love. That's what makes a mother. And no judge, no lawyer, and no amount of money could ever take that away. 9 months after the hearing, I found myself standing in the back of a conference hall in Seattle, watching my grandson address 200 people about the intersection of autism and technology. The transformation was remarkable. Not in Jaden. He was still exactly himself, still wore his noise-canceling headphones until the moment he stepped on stage, still carried Mr. Trunk in his backpack for comfort. But in how the world saw him, how he saw himself. My name is Jaden King. I'm 17 years old. I have autism. And I'm here to tell you that neurodivergence isn't a limitation, it's a different operating system. His voice carried through the hall, confident and clear. The same brain that struggles with eye contact and small talk can see patterns in data that neurotypical minds miss. The same obsessive focus that makes social situations exhausting can fuel 20-hour coding sessions. We're not broken. We're differently designed. The audience applauded. I felt tears prickling my eyes, remembering the 4-year-old who couldn't speak in full sentences, who'd line up toy cars for hours because words were too hard. Bitewise had grown beyond anything we'd imagined. 3 million active users now. Partnerships with major health organizations. And somehow, impossibly, my grandson had convinced the board to create a position specifically for me, Chief Comfort Officer. It's not a joke, Grandma, he'd said when he told me. You ensure I eat properly, sleep properly, maintain healthy routines. You're the COO, Chief Comfort Officer. I need that role filled. It's crucial to operations. So I had business cards now. At 59 years old, I had a title at a multi-million-dollar tech company. Life is strange sometimes. We'd moved to a better apartment 3 months ago. More space, better neighborhood, actual bedrooms instead of converted alcoves. But Jaden had insisted on bringing everything from our old place. Every piece of furniture, every kitchen utensil, every single item that made it home, instead of just a house. I don't adapt well to change, he'd explained seriously. If we bring her home with us, it's not really change. It's just relocation of existing structure. That was Jaden. Logic applied to emotion. And somehow it worked. He'd also started a foundation, the Neurocode Initiative, providing technology scholarships and coding mentorship for children on the autism spectrum. 15 kids enrolled in the first cohort. Jaden personally reviewed every application, looking for young people who saw the world the way he did. They need someone who understands, he told me. Someone who knows that being different isn't being less. As for Tamara, she came to her monthly supervised visits. Not all of them. She'd missed 3 over the past 9 months, but more than I'd expected. The visits were cordial now. No performance. No manipulation. Just awkward attempts at conversation with a son who'd grown up without her. Sometimes she brought coffee and sat with him while he coded, not talking much, just being present. Sometimes they talked about his projects, and she'd ask questions that showed she'd actually been reading about his work. Sometimes the visits were stilted and uncomfortable, both of them searching for common ground that might never fully exist. There was no reconciliation, no tearful reunion, no erasure of the past, but there was no warfare either. Just boundaries, maintained firmly, but without cruelty. She's trying, Jaden had said after a particularly decent visit. It's not enough to erase 8 years, but it's data. Actions over time. I'm documenting it. That was as close to forgiveness as he could articulate. And it was enough. Now, watching him on stage in Seattle, I let my mind drift through the montage of moments that had brought us here. The sleepless nights when he was young, his small body rigid with overstimulation, me holding him and rocking and singing until he finally relaxed. The meltdowns in grocery stores, other parents staring while I stayed calm and created a cocoon of safety with my body. His first complete sentence at age 5, "I love you, Grandma. You're my favorite person." The first time he made eye contact deliberately, purposefully wanting me to see him seeing me. The blue glow of his laptop at 2 a.m. and me bringing warm milk and his hand reaching for mine. The courtroom, his voice steady and sure, choosing presence over promises. Every moment had mattered. Every single one had built toward this. A young man, brilliant and kind, standing on a stage and changing minds about what disability means, what family means, what love means. The presentation ended to standing applause. Jaden gave an awkward little bow. We'd practiced that and left the stage. 20 minutes later, he found me in the back of the hall. "How'd I do?" "You were perfect, sweetheart. So perfect." He smiled, that rare, unguarded smile, and put his headphones back on. "Can we get Thai food? I'm hungry now." "Absolutely, sweetheart. Whatever you want." So here we are, at the end of the story. And I know many of you have been following along, rooting for us, maybe seeing pieces of your own life in ours. People ask me if I forgive Tamara. It's the question I get most often, and here's my truth. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. It's not the same as trust. And it's definitely not the same as access. Jaden gave me the greatest gift that day in court, not his money, but his voice. He chose love over biology. Presence over promises. He reminded everyone in that courtroom that family is built in moments, not DNA. If you're watching this and you're raising a child that isn't biologically yours, whether you're a grandmother like me, an aunt, a foster parent, or anyone who stepped in when someone else stepped out, I need you to hear this. You're not just anything. You're not a substitute. You're not a placeholder. You are the sun they orbit around. You are the gravity that keeps them safe. You are their real parent in every way that actually matters. Biology doesn't wake up at 3 a.m. with warm milk. Biology doesn't learn which sounds hurt. Biology doesn't knit sweaters that get outgrown. Biology doesn't show up day after day, year after year, when things are hard and messy and thank you less. You do that. And that makes you their real family. And if you're someone who left and now wants to come back, whether because you've genuinely changed or because circumstances have suddenly made your child more appealing, hear this too. The door isn't locked. But you'll have to earn the key, one moment at a time. Not with gifts. Not with lawyers. Not with explanations or excuses. With presence. With patience. with proving through actions, not words, that you understand what you lost and what you're asking to regain. Jaden taught me that love is logical. It's measurable. It's quantifiable in moments given, not promises made. And when you measure love that way, the truth becomes undeniable. 2,920 days. That's what it took to build what we have. That's what no one can ever take away. If you've been that child caught in the middle, torn between biology and the person who actually raised you, between guilt and gratitude, between what people say family should be and what you know it actually is, I see you. I see you, and I want you to know you deserved better than being abandoned. You deserved better than being used. You deserved consistency and love and someone who showed up. If you found that person, hold them close.
Tell them they matter.
Tell them you see what they've sacrificed. And if you're still looking for that person, still waiting for someone to choose you the way you deserve to be chosen, keep going. You are worth showing up for. You are worth the effort. You are worth 2,920 days of love and more. Because in the end, family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who shares your moments, who stays through the hard parts, who measures love not in words but in presence. That's the only metric that matters. And by that measure, Jaden and I have always been family. Biology had nothing to do with it. Love did. And love won. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to protect someone you love from their own family?
How did you handle it?
What boundaries did you set? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories matter. Give us a like if you enjoyed the story. Thank you so much for your sweet support. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. By the way, don't forget to subscribe. It encourages me to keep bringing more stories like this. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.